Under the rug. There I was in the parking lot of my yoga studio. It was the first week of January 2017, a Tuesday. I was gathering my things to get out and teach a spinning class when my phone rang, and I saw it was my friend who had been on a trip to Costa Rica. I had a few minutes to spare, so I took his call. He excitedly shared details of his experience. He wanted to check on me as he remembered I was about to go on a 10-day Vipassana meditation trip myself. As we conversed, he shared how he had possibly found an opportunity to open a shelter for battered women and kids. And when he shared that, I instantly felt my heart clench. Reminds me of what I talked in the last chapter about like your heart will still be contracted from the echoes of past. But anyways, okay. I immediately felt my heart clench. It was like I had visuals that were activated, yet my memory was foggy, perturbed. I thanked him for the call and quickly told him I was about to teach and needed to go. I took a minute to recollect myself, yet memories were trying to come through. I quickly assessed I quickly assessed that my visual was of 9 or 10-year-old self. How could that be? I have great memory and can recount things clearly as early as 4 years old. Knowing I had a few minutes, I quickly jumped on a call with my mom. After our hellos, I asked her, Mom, did we ever go to a shelter? She rapidly answered, Yes, you don't remember? My eyes were closed shut and I couldn't even walk for about 2 weeks. As she shared, overwhelming emotions came over me. I responded with, Oh, yes, and I let her know I needed to teach. Yet I had some memories and was confused. I thanked her and let her know that I would be away for 10 days with no communication. I told her I would call her when I returned and thank her for answering my question. I sat there for a moment, recollecting myself. I reminded myself how on point it is for me to have this surface exactly the day before my Vipassana. I coached myself that unpacking my feelings in that moment was not beneficial. I needed to teach a class, and I didn't want my kids to witness me struggling the day before I left for 10 days. I figured this would be something great to release and heal while I was away. This experience was one of that many people in my circle observed, and they noticed a palpable change in me. Looking back, I can see how remembering and healing a tiny portion of the domestic violence was why. So, to clarify, the experience that I'm talking about that people could tell changed me was going to my Vipassana for 10 days, because in that particular Vipassana was some of the first actual healing that I did regarding domestic violence. In my walk with over 10,000 people, I have observed that we often seek a quick aha moment, an epiphany, and consider it resolved. We are so quick to be good. We bypass the actual processing, digestion, and acclimation of internal dialogue and information our cells are carrying and expressing. This was the second time heavy emotions were surfacing, except this time I was aware it was about domestic abuse, and the first time I chalked it up to sexual abuse. My kids dropped me off in Joshua Tree for my retreat. I maintained a joyful demeanor the whole ride as they laughed and joked the entire way. I feigned joy as I consistently pushed down tears and emotions demanding to be felt. At the drop off, they hugged, kissed, and wished me well. I walked away and waved goodbye as they drove off. I instantly allowed my tears to fall as I approached the registration building. I took a moment, and once I wiped my tears, I checked in. Vipassana is a 10-day meditation retreat where you are required to have no books to read, no cell phone, no writing, no talking, and not even looking at others during the retreat. It is very solitary experience designed to have you go within. Your dormitory your dormitories are small rooms with the most basic amenities, including a bed, a drawer, a bathroom, and of course, single occupancy. As I retired to my room and set up, I thought about when I would dive into what these feelings that had just surfaced from being in a shelter were about. I had already deeply healed my sexual abuse, yet that was such a journey. I didn't want to experience such intense impact. My kids can remember, my son specifically, what a dark period that was, and the healing from my suicidal memories and feelings. I can look back and see that when I healed my sexual abuse in 2013, 2014, I went through it basically all alone. No therapy, no therapist, no support groups, no partner, no family, too embarrassed to share with friends. There was a period when my body shut down, and doctors said they couldn't understand how I was alive, as all my vitals were non existent. During that period, I had friends spoon feed me, and my son would carry me over to the bathroom as I had no energy or force to walk. It was around early November of 2013 when a doctor told me to stay away from the public as I had no immunity, and if I caught a cold, it could be fatal. Sure enough, I noticed a cold in early December and I was bedridden for 7 months. As I write this, I'm realizing why I kept brushing the healing off this domestic violence under the rug. I never wanted to go through that again. And so I have wanted to be able to face so I have wanted to be able to face and control not ever being that sick or grave. Wow. I have been generalizing that it was a typical human behavior, which didn't make sense because I intentionally and consistently face things. I delve in to understand and know myself. Though, yes, it has an element of typical human behavior to avoid and gloss over something painful. It is mainly from the vein of not wanting to ever experience pain in such a way that it feels it will take me out, as I experience healing with my sexual abuse. It is a reason I have heard from many why they don't want to do internal work. They fear what all will surface or don't have the time to feel anything more than they already know they are bodily, numbing, or avoiding. My daughter 2 nights ago shared how impressive it was to see me this last week, as Godspeed things moved this time. She shared that upon observing my processing, resiliency, and ability to feel and heal, it was impressively faster. Little did we know it was going to show up with a vengeance in November, December. Anyways, she said, though she was young, she could remember herself and my son dreading when I would enter a depressive healing state because they would know they were in for 3 to 4 months before I would be out of deep healing and pain. She shared how seeing me deeply feel all week and see the difference day by day and within 7 days come full circle is a true testament to the healing growth and true strength I have harnessed. I want to take a pause right there. I can remember back to September when I wrote this, and I was so raw and just so vulnerable. I was weak in spirit and physical, everything. I just felt so whew, for a week. And even though I have had severe things to deal with in November, December, specifically December and January, I can say that mentally I've been okay. Like I'm strong. Like I'm like, oh, this is a healing thing. Okay, we're gonna be okay. Or my spirits have just been trusting. Um, obviously there's concerns as any human beings, but in the end, I've always been able to surrender through this journey, and it's just so different. Like I just know it's so different. I've been able to still serve people here and there just because of the fact that it matters for us when we really allow ourselves to build the ability, the capacity, the resiliency, to really like to become untethered, basically. So, anyways, coming back. One of the greatest gifts has been guiding others to freedom. It has strengthened me immensely. It's as if every one of their wins has become mine as well, and my wins are their stepping stones. We truly become one in pain, in power. This November will mark my 10th anniversary since I started my first course, the Radical 40-Day Empowerment Course. Shameless plug, I'm starting it where I'm guiding it myself. I haven't done that in years, this April 6th. Okay. I started offering healing coaching in June 2015, and by November, I noticed many parallels in people's journeys, which led me to develop a group course. I have never had anyone in my 10 years be affected the way I was. Journaling served as a map to help me understand my tendencies, my fears, my immense feelings that one must conquer. Having that type of hindsight has been the key to profoundly leading thousands to freedom without them having to go through this. So, yes, as I write, I can see why I have walked on eggshells when it comes to facing and healing this chapter of my life. Sigh. This real time realization has me feel relief. I know I am too clear in life and who we are to get lost. I wasn't wrong. When I wrote this in September, I didn't know what was coming in the months to come, but I knew. I knew I was too clear in life and who I am to get lost. Yet I didn't realize this during the 2017 retreat. I recall that on the first night of our arrival, we had meditation session and a presentation on the housekeeping rules and itinerary for the days ahead. I love hearing that if we were struggling, we could sign up to talk to one of the leading monks. I was at the end of our second day, having meditated for 8 hours, when I sensed I was overwhelmed with emotions. So I set myself up for a talk the following day. The talk went very well. I shared how the day before starting the retreat, I had discovered that I had locked away the memories of being in a shelter with my siblings and my mom, badly battered. He guided me through some questions, which I don't remember now, but I can recall they were very relieving. Before the retreat, I had always been bewildered by the fact that if I thought of losing anyone to death, I would have tears surface. Yet, if I thought of losing my mom, I would feel numb, like a profound understanding that yes, at one point we will lose our parents. I remember doing reflection checks. Was I unconsciously resentful, bitter, or did I have an unknown wedge with my mom? It always became clear I absolutely love her and I have no thoughts of resentment. So why? I had this numbness regarding her life was a mystery until this retreat. Before I met with the lead monk, I had processed memories about the shelter. I remembered our arrival and my brother's discontent. He was unhappy and checked out. I remember my little sisters being startled. Fortunately, they were used to me as their caretaker, so they weren't necessarily upset. I remember asking when I would get to see my mom. When would she be reunited with us? I remember being concerned as to why she wasn't there with us. It wouldn't be until September 15, 2024, that I would recall the details as to why my mom wasn't there with us. I remember the day after we arrived at the shelter when they explained the rules to us and discussed the food distribution. I remember they had powdered milk, which I found disgusting. I remember my brother expressing a desire to go home. I remember telling him, "No, we are safe here." I can't exactly remember how much time passed, whether it was a day or two, when we finally saw our mom. I remember being overjoyed to see her, but then instantly anguished by the fact that she could barely walk. The shelter lady and the wall were her assistants. I quickly rushed to her aid and saw she couldn't really see me as her eyes were practically shut. The following days were harsh, with my brother being upset at my mom completely out of it. I was doing my best to keep my sisters entertained and soothed. As a week passed, my mom was sitting up and slowly walking. The second week, they laid down the rules to her as well, her responsibilities and expectations. I kept trying to reassure my brother and her that this was for the best and that we would bounce back and be in our own place soon enough. My mother had a girlfriend visit her. I was trying to eavesdrop on the conversation, yet couldn't quite hear. I had known this friend from my early childhood and was hopeful that maybe we would be going with her, as I knew both my mom and brother were not happy at the shelter. I do remember feeling the shelter home restrictive and cold, yet we were safe. She was safe, and that was my primary focus. The next day, Rosie, my mom's friend, came over again. The conversation again seemed emotionally intense. When she left, my mom pulled my brother and me to the room where we were staying. She asked us if we wanted to go home. My heart sank. How could we even be considering that option? I instantly answered no, and my brother answered yes just as quickly. I told my mom that there's no way we should consider this an option. My dad had offered to take us in, even with my sisters who weren't his. He had come and physically talked to her, telling her that all he cared about was for her and for my siblings and me to be okay. I reminded her that that was an option. She shook her head. No, that wouldn't be good. She proceeded to share that her friend Rosie had talked to my stepdad and threatened him that if he ever hurt her again, he would have to deal with her. I was going crazy. Did she hear herself? If he ever hurt her again? How was this an option we were considering? My brother proceeded to share how he couldn't watch TV, or at least not his preferred shows, and he hated the food, which made going home preferable. I felt as if I was going insane, just like that. With his vote and her discomfort with the situation, we would be going home the next day. The anxiety I felt is something that I can still remember. It overwhelms me with tears to think of little Raquelita feeling hopeless and daunted by this situation. I remember Rosie dropping us off at our house. I refuse to call it a home. I remember my little sisters being happy to see their dad, which was a joyful sight. They were so little that they really didn't fuss the time we were away. My mom would leave another time in the future when they were between the ages of 3 and 4, and at that time they would be restless about missing their dad. At that time, we also returned home, as he had caught us one day walking to the store and followed us back to the hotel that we were staying. Recollecting my thoughts about the shelter experience had me heavily emotionally charged, yet I couldn't understand why. After that night of reflection, I knew my talking point to start with the lead monk would be how to release these feelings. In the meeting, he helped me realize that I had shut down my heart towards feeling fear for my mom. As a child, I decided that if she wanted to go back and possibly be killed, it was her choice. In my intelligence to not drive myself crazy or become riddled with observable anxiety, I decided to respect her choice and resolve myself before any possible adverse outcomes that may come from her decision to return to our house. I became mainly focused on providing for my siblings. Though still always fervently protecting her when fights arose, I unconsciously resolved not to feel fear regarding her life and instead concentrated on stopping the fights. In my meeting with the monk, I understood why. When talking about loss, I could tear up with anyone except my mom. It made sense now. I didn't have any hidden animosity towards her. I simply had a program I installed to keep myself sane at the young age of 9 or 10. I felt a tremendous sense of relief and a return of happiness. Like the infamous scene from The Grinch, I was feeling. I have often been described as very practical, pragmatic, and not a touchy-feely person. This is this event is what cemented that attitude and replaced my natural way of being. I was well versed in emotional intelligence at this stage of my life, and I knew, having locked my heart in such a way to keep the fear out, that I had also, by default, locked out other things, such as connection, love, and joy. I didn't receive direct physical abuse from my stepdad, so I never saw it as something I had to heal. As far as I was concerned, this was the extent of my hurt regarding domestic violence. I can see why so many in my life in 2017 commented and expressed to me during that period how much they felt and noticed a change in me. I was immensely grateful and happy, and it showed. Life truly shifted and expanded after this discovery. I felt as life became technicolor. I could see and feel more. A few months after this, I would discover self love. Being more deeply connected with my kids was also a result. So much transformed that from my journaling during that period, I created my 21-day Love Yourself course. My relationship really flourished with my mom, my kids, my siblings, my friends, and above all, with myself and my kitty. It would be another 3 years until the domestic violence monster would rear its ugly head again. It feels so freeing, liberating, and empowering to realize as I write this that the reason I resisted facing this head on, as I usually like to do with life, was that underlying it was this fear that I might end up detrimentally ill, as I did with my sexual and suicidal feelings journey. It brings a strong sense of power, realizing that all that was made to hurt me, kill my spirit, simply comes to pass because of the love, passion, and purpose for God within me, which has never been touched or tainted. I can see how my purpose for God has been my guiding force in alkalizing all things lived in darkness, like the following event that would have me resurface the trauma from the domestic violence, which would be at Yoga Works in 2020. Okay. Uh, it's funny. I turned the page and the next chapter is I'm not okay and that's okay. So, something I can share is that in this journey, this from September 2025 to today, March 10th, 2026, is that I kept it kind of very private. I did speak a little bit on it, but and people know that I'm usually very transparent, I'm very open with anything I have going on, but this one I kept quiet because I could remember a big part of what really felt heavy during my period of healing the SA and the suicidal seasons of my life was how much people were like, "Oh, but you're our superwoman, like, you can't be down," or it was just things that people would try and say encouraging, but at the same time, they weren't necessarily helping, or a lot of the times people perception of us then makes us believe or feel a certain way, and so I didn't want any of that I had experienced the last time, so I kinda kept this kinda, like, low key, just my close circle of, like, 20 people knew, and really, they knew on surface. The only people that really knew were my sisters and my cousin and, my 2 of my besties, 3 of my besties, and, that was it. Just my kids, my sister, my cousin, and my 3 besties, and even with, like, my sisters, because my besties had already been a part of this journey with me on the last round, but not my sister so much. I could just really feel the concern of my sisters, and, I mean, they were my powerhouses, but at the same time, it was very, like, hard to keep reassuring them, specifically my mommy sister, um, Lupe, telling her, like, "I'm okay. I know I'm gonna be okay. I know this is more like healing than I'm don't," the doctors are trying to say possibly early onset dementia, and that was scary, but I knew it wasn't. It was just deep healing, and so I am so looking forward to this summer because I just already know where this is going. Entering spring, Easter around the corner. I usually have huge level ups every Easter. I already know life is about, whew, if I thought I've known joy and peace and happiness before to the point that clients have said, I thought you were bullshitting. I thought she's a liar. I've heard that so many times from different clients, and now they're like, and I do, it's true. I have to hit my chest because of how happy I can be at times. So I just know what's awaiting for me is amazing. And I actually have enrolled myself to do a Vipassana course next month in April. We're going to really get to the root. There is a death that is happening, and we're going to see it all the way through because that makes space for a version that I can never even begin to imagine. All glory to God. So, thank you for listening as I share with you. I hope that it speaks to some of your understanding and healing.